Gravedigger, a Day Brandstetter mystery, Book 6. Author, Joseph Hansen. Publisher, Open Road Integrated Media, New York. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 4. At 2 in the morning, the sprawling low-roofed houses along Sandpiper Lane were dark. He stopped the Triumph by the Little Palm again and got out into wind as relentless as yesterday morning's wind, but colder. The Little Palm rattled its fans. Far down the road, around a bend, a solitary street lamp shone. Here it was, very dark. He looked up. No moon, not even stars. He went up the driveway toward the black bulk of the house. Leaves and pods crackled under his feet when he stepped up into the front door recess. The eucalyptus smell was musty. From his key case, he chose one slim shaft of metal after another. The third worked in the lock, but the door wouldn't open. There must be a deadbolt. He found his way along the side of the house, feeling with his hands. The brick was rough. He shuffled and went slowly. Twice he stepped up into the spongy yield of mulch and planters to test windows. Both were fastened at the rear of the house with a roofed, screened patio. Its door was locked. It would have been easy to open, but he didn't open it, figuring the door into the house itself would be bolted. He went around a front again to the garage door. The padlock gave easily. Holding its pitted coldness in his hand, he turned and looked up and down the street. No one. He dropped the padlock into the pocket of his sheepskin jacket, bent and lifted the garage door, just enough to be able to slip under it. Inside, in the smells of dusty tires, grease, gasoline, he let the door drop shut softly. He put his face close to the dusty little pane. No one. He risked probing the darkness for a second with the beam of a penlight. Nothing for him to stumble over on his way to the house door. He switched the light off and went to the door. It was not locked. He stepped up and into the house and closed the door behind him. He stood braced for bad smells, death, decay. He didn't smell anything like that. The air was warm. Westover or Lyle had forgotten to turn off the thermostat. He went toward the front of the house. He felt rather than saw a large room open to his right. As if blind, he walked a slow step at a time, silent on carpet. He groped out with his hands. He bumped furniture. Something flimsy and metallic fell with a delicate clatter. He waited. No one had heard. His hands found curved, polished wood. A piano. What he wanted to find were curtains. He found them, drawn across their windows. He thought he remembered that from yesterday morning. He risked using the penlight again. The curtains were drawn on all the windows. What he had mistaken for a piano was a harpsichord. On its closed top lay a flute and an oboe. Dust muted the shine of their wood, their metal. What he had knocked over was a music rack. There were two more, each with music open on it. He righted the fallen rack. Printed on the cover of the music was Anton Rica, strings, woodwinds, continuo. He set it on the rack, which trembled with its weight. He touched a key of the harpsichord. It sang sweetly. The harpsichord had two manuals. He listened. He followed the penlight's thin beam into all the rooms, closing the curtains, switching on lights. No one, alive or dead. One room was a den, an office, really. Desk, typewriter, files. He left that to look at bedrooms. There were 4. In 2, the beds were unmade. Over one hung framed photographs, 8 by 10s, 6 of them, in 2 rows. He recognized Wanda Landowski in beaky profile at a keyboard. He peered at the signature on another photograph, Igor Kipnis, another harpsichordist. Bookshelves stood in this room. On them, elaborate stereo equipment, shouldered record albums, untidy heaps of music, books about music, composers, performers, Nothing distinguished. The other bedroom and both clothes lay folded in the chest of drawers. Clothes hung in closets. Shoes, luggage. There were 3 large bedrooms lined with mirrors, but only one had the look of having been in use. Pressure cans of shave cream, tooth powder, toothpaste, a pair of toothbrushes, 2 plastic-handled throwaway razors. Why won't Westover be back tomorrow? Why won't the kid? Something red sparked in the shag weave of a bath mat. He bent for it. A capsule. He checked. Druggist amber plastic vials in the medicine chest. No Secanols. But he thought this was a Secanol. In the kitchen, a few unwashed dishes were stacked on a sink counter. On a breakfast bar, like the one at Scotty Decker's across the street, slices of dark bread had slumped from a clear plastic wrapper and dried out. A 1/4 inch of milk had soured in the bottom of a tall glass. Butter had puddled in its oblong dish. Cheese slices were growing green mold in their open packet. A half-empty jar of mayonnaise gaped, its lid beside it. A fly had died in the mayonnaise. Ferns hung in baskets over the breakfast bar. The fronds were drying out and turning brown. He rinsed the milk glass at the sink and watered the ferns. Back in the den, he sat in the chair that had a tall, padded leather back and padded leather arms, and that swiveled. Could turn to the desk, turn to the typewriter table. Typed sheets lay stacked on the desk, face down. A half-typed sheet was in the typewriter. It was a late model electric typewriter. He switched on a desk lamp and peered at the typing. It didn't make a lot of sense. Something about making sure the mark didn't telephone the bank. He turned over the stack of pages. Confessions of a Con Man, the top page read, by Howie O'Rourke, as told to Charles Westover. Dave put on his glasses and leafed through the pages. An introduction claimed that O'Rourke knew every swindle, cunning, and greed had devised since time began, had worked most of them, and had spent years in prison for getting caught at it. This book was going to tell all. No one who read it could ever be flim-flammed out of his hard-earned money again. Dave checked the rest of the typescript. Didn't find anything about insurance frauds. Laid the sheets back together, taped the edges on the dusty desktop to straighten them, laid the stack on its face again, and rose to look into a brown steel file cabinet and a folder labeled with the title of the book. He found copies of query letters to 20 publishers. The letters asked for an advance of $200,000. 12 publishers had replied negatively. None had even made a counteroffer. Dave heard a noise, not the wind. He slipped the folder back, quietly closed the file drawer, and switched off the desk lamp. Taking off his glasses, he moved in the dark to the door of the den and stood there, listening, straining to hear. He had turned off the lights in each of the rooms as he left it. His eyes strained against the darkness. What had the noise been? The garage door? It went up and down on armatures, and these were equipped with big springs which sang baritone when they stretched. That was what he had heard faintly, but the house was dead, quiet. The night, the neighborhood, except for the snore of the wind under the eaves and far off the surf. He waited, heartbeats thudding in his ears. He thought he heard the soft click of a door latch. He didn't listen for footfalls. There was all that thick carpeting. Then a girl's voice, tentative, timid, called, "Lyle, are you here?" Light glowed at the end of the hall. He went toward it. He said, "Lyle isn't here." He came out into the room with that harpsichord. Lamps glowed in the room, and a girl was standing on the far side of the room. A fat girl, whose hip bulged in too tight jeans. Her big shoulders and bulky bosom were covered by a hand-loomed Mexican pullover, red, yellow, orange, with its hood laid back. She wore wire-rimmed round glasses, and her hair was long, straight straw color. She looked surprised, but not scared. He said, "Who are you?" She said, "Who are you?" "I'm an insurance investigator," he said. "And my name is Dave Brandstetter. Now it's your turn." "Where's Lyle?" she said. "I keep phoning and no one answers. I keep coming. I need my flute and my oboe. Nobody answers the doorbell, so today I tried getting in. Somebody phoned the security patrol. Luckily, I saw them coming and ran around back and climbed the wall. If they'd found me, I'd probably be in jail now for attempted burglary. Are you going to call the police on me?" "It would be the sheriff," Dave said, "and I've talked to the sheriff. He doesn't want to come here." "Everything was locked up tight," she said. "I was going to break a window tonight, then I saw the lock was off the garage door. First I thought they were back, but their cars weren't here. You got the lock off, right?" Dave took it out of his pocket and held it up. She blinked. "Did you break in?" "I didn't have to," he said. "Where's Mr. Westover?" She tilted her head, puzzled. "Insurance? Did something happen to him?" "I don't know. No one seems to know. I'm here because he filed an insurance claim with a company called Banner. Only when I came to see him about it, he was gone. Appears to have been gone for days. I don't see the sense of that, except that he was in financial trouble. Maybe he couldn't wait for his claim to be settled." "What kind of trouble was Lyle in?" "He couldn't go back to school." She went to the circle of glittering music racks. She crouched and brought out from under the harpsichord 2 leather-covered instrument cases and laid them open on the polished wood of the harpsichord. One case was lined with dark blue plush, the other with maroon color plush. "He was working." She pulled the flute to pieces and laid the parts and grooves in one of the cases. "In the studios. TV background scores, you know? And recording studios, to help his father out." She pulled the oboe to pieces and laid its parts in the second case. "He joined the union long ago. He was one of the youngest members and good harpsichordists who can play classical, pop, rock on site and tune their own instruments besides. They're not common, okay?" She closed the cases. "That was the only trouble he had, that he couldn't go to school. He's got a lot of studying to do yet. Or that's how he feels." She snapped the catches closed on the cases. "Can I show you something?" she said. Dave went to her. She turned the cases and with plump, dimpled fingers touched little metal tags riveted into the hard leather. Dave put on his glasses and peered through them at the tags. Each tag read, "T. Foley." "T is for trio," she said. She was a homely girl. Her nose was a knob with a pushed-up tip like a pig's. She was too old for pimples, but she had them. Her cheeks were balloons. The lenses in those wire frames that made her little eyes seem to swim were thick because one of the eyes was crossed. Her voice was colorless. Her mouth turned down at the corners, but she had a beautiful smile. With a name like Trio, she groped in a crossways pouch pocket in the front of the Mexican pullover. "What could I be but a musician?" She brought out a wallet, whose leather lacing had come loose. She showed Dave her automobile operator's license, covered in cracked plastic that had turned yellow. Trio Foley was the name on the license, and the color photo made her look fatter than she was. She put the wallet away. "I want you to know I wasn't stealing someone else's instruments. Can I go now?" "You can go without asking me," Dave said. "But I wish you'd tell me first where you think Lyle is gone." "He didn't say he was going anywhere," she said. "If he had, I wouldn't have left my instruments here, would I? The others took theirs, violin, cello. I had a score copying job that wouldn't leave me time to practice. We were set up to meet here again Friday. No one was home. We couldn't understand it. Lyle was the one who set it up." "Would they know where he went? The violin, the cello?" "I doubt it," she said. "They didn't say so, and they hadn't known him long. Not like I have." "Would he have gone with his father?" She made a face. He was here because he has a very strong sense of responsibility. And he owed his father, or thought he did, for all his father had done for him financially, to see that he got a first-class musical education and all that. But he was just being dutiful. He lost all respect for his father after his father. She eyed Dave nearsightedly through the thick lenses. You know what his father did. You know he went to prison. I know, Dave said. I don't mean Lyle said anything. He wouldn't. But you could tell how he felt. He never smiled about his father. All he said was, yes and no. Okay. I guess he felt sorry for him in a way, but he really didn't. She moved those big square shoulders inside the Mexican pullover. Well, have any use for him? He was in despair over him, all right? There has to be love behind that, Dave said. He was here, wasn't he? She said. But he wouldn't run away with him. From the man's honest debts, nothing like that. Do you know Howie O'Rourke? Dave said. That creep, she said. He used to hang around here at night, pretending to listen to us smoking grass, drinking wine, red hair, long sideburns, and this dead white skin, you know, fish belly white. He thought he was God's gift to women. He didn't want to hear us play. He just wanted to have sex. With Jennifer, Kimberly, even with me. She smiled wryly. Can you believe that? He'd sprawled there on the couch with his legs stretched out, feeling himself up and leering at us. Really? Leering? Finally, Lyle told his father to keep him out of there. They were writing a book together, Dave said. Mr. Westover was writing it. Howie couldn't write his own name. He was telling Mr. Westover all his garbage about being a con artist. She snorted contempt. Howie couldn't be a con artist? Howie couldn't be anything. Oh, maybe a worm if he practiced a lot. She lifted music from one of the racks, made a thick roll of it, stuck the roll into the pouch pocket, and picked up the instrument cases from the harpsichord. She started off, then turned back. If they went together, why are both cars gone? She shook her head hard, and with certainty, strands of the straw-colored hair fell across her face. They wouldn't go together. She stuck out her lower lip and blew at the fallen hair. No way would they go together. Take this. Dave held out a card, and if you get any ideas about where Lyle might be, telephone me, will you? Maybe something he said will come back to you, or something Mr. Westover said. I'll be grateful. She tucked the flute case under her arm, took the card, glanced at it, stashed it away with the music, the wallet. You know, what I never thought, when I telephoned and rang the doorbell and all that, and no one answered, that they could be in trouble. I was the only one I thought about getting my instruments. The hair flopped across her face again when she shook her head and disgusted herself. I wasn't even worried about them. I should have told the police or someone that something was wrong here. Her crossed, magnified eyes apologized to Dave. I'm not much of a human being, am I? If you weren't, Dave said, you wouldn't be worried about it. Is Lyle a close friend? I've been in love with him since the first time we met at Buenos Ventos, right? The music camp. We both had scholarships. It's for gifted kids. Master classes. A good conductor. Summers. He was all alone in this empty practice cabin. Just boards and 2x4s, no glass in the windows. He was playing the piano. The sun was shining on him. He's very beautiful. He has a speech defect, Dave said. You don't notice that, she said. Not after a while. It doesn't matter. Does he know you're in love with him? Do you know any geniuses? He wouldn't notice. All he notices is music. Her laugh was sad. Can you be insensitive and be a good musician? I'm fat, cross-eyed, and I have a bad skin, she said. He doesn't know how I feel because I haven't told him. What would it be? Just embarrassing for both of us, wouldn't it? He's not insensitive, just the opposite. You'll see. He's not childish. He's very intelligent and complicated, but there's something about him, like a little boy, vulnerable as soon as you meet him. You start to worry about him, wanting to shelter him. You know? Not when he's playing. He's fine then, strong, but the rest of the time you can see things hurt him. See the pain in his eyes, and you want to keep the pain away. She made a helpless little circle in the air with a plump hand. I'm sorry, I can't explain it exactly. He looks so fragile. Does he ever mention his sister? Does he have a sister? Where is she? Suppose he heard that she was dead. Murdered, Dave said. What would that do to him? She stared. She dropped the instrument cases on a long, low couch. They sank into deep brown velvet cushions. Insurance, she said again. Her tongue touched her lips as if they were dry. That's why you're here? He told her what he knew. What's your impression of Charles Westover? Not that he'd do anything like that. He's like a ghost. Gray, sad, kind of, shrunken. Oh, you can see just sometimes what he must have been like. Charming, funny, but mostly, I don't know, like he was, beaten. Did he know Lyle was fragile? Would he have told him that he thought Azrael had killed his sister? As if her legs wouldn't hold her. Trio dropped onto the couch. The instrument cases clumped together against her porky thigh. She sat hunched up, knees tight together, hands clutched tight in her lap. She stared at nothing. She said, almost to herself, if he did? That's why Lyle isn't here. He ran away once before. He told me. I'd forgotten it was before I knew him. When his father got caught, Lyle just left, disappeared. His mother had the police searching for him. It was in the papers, on TV. Teenage musician, genius, vanishes. Then he came back. One day his mother walked in the door here, and he was taking a shower, just as if he'd never been gone. Did he tell you where he'd been? No. It's not that he's secretive. That sounds sly, and he's not sly. He's open as a child, as a flower, I guess. It's just that it's so hard for him to make himself understood that after a while he decided trying wasn't worth it. Not if you could play. Maybe he's gone back to New York, Dave said. I'll phone Juilliard in the morning. It's possible. They'll know some friends he's staying with there. Maybe he could fly on credit cards. She didn't sound as if she believed it. But he didn't have any money. He turned it all over to his father. She rose and picked up the cases again. As fast as the union sent him his checks. What kind of car does he have? Dave said. Would it get him to New York? It wouldn't get him to Nevada. She went through the lamp shadows toward the entryway. It's a beat-up old gremlin junk. She turned back one more time. Serenity. That's his sister's name. Ironical, isn't it? Trio made you a musician, Dave said. Maybe her name saved her. Serenity can survive a lot. She winced a little smile and went away. He listened for the hum of the garage door springs. When he heard it, he switched off the lamps in the harpsichord room and went back to see what else he could find in Charles Westover's den. A Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.